these giant insect things. So it is the plot, but it also isn't the plot. What is the logic behind this decision? It's really depressing. And probably one of the most sympathetic villains ever. He's such a jerkwad in the second season. It's so random! Hi guys, welcome back to another Nerd Rants video. This one has a looser goal, because I finished Poldark, and as some of you may know at this point, when I finish a more long-winded show that I have gotten very invested in, I go into TV Limbo. And I have no idea what to do with myself after that. I was watching YouTubers react to movies for a solid 2 days. Like, I didn't know what to do with myself or what I wanted to watch. So eventually I kind of sort of got out of that with watching a bunch of random things. Some I had seen before, some movies. This is kind of prime time for me to watch movies, is when I get into TV Limbo. Let's just get right into it, I suppose. You already got my ranting thoughts about Moana 2. Now we're gonna get into things that I didn't have as pressing of a rant to get out of off my chest. So the first one is an anime movie called Nausica and the Valley of the Wind, which is a Ghibli movie. And honestly, it's one of my two favorites. Because I haven't watched all of the Ghibli movies, but I've watched a decent amount now. And Princess Mononoke took the cake. The moment I saw it, it was my favorite. Very like fantasy, beautiful animation, interesting storyline, all the way at the top. And then we have the other, some of the more whimsical, I guess, stories like Boy and the Heron, Spirited Away. Those ones, they're still very good, but not quite as enjoyable to me as Princess Mononoke was. And then the ones that are on the bottom, still good movies, but on the bottom for as far as enjoyment level for me are the ones like My Neighbor Totoro, and the ones that don't have as much of a storyline going on. So Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind went up to the top with like Howl's Moving Castle and Princess Mononoke. It's not better than Princess Mononoke in my opinion, but it's still very good. And it's very interesting, and it's kind of a dystopian world setting. So people have to, and so there's these giant insect things, which design for them is absolutely stunning. They have rampaged across the earth and in a sense poisoned it. So now humans can no longer breathe that air, and there's this forest growing out from the heart of this now wasteland. And it's just growing as people try to stop it because they attack them and they make them mad, and then they continue to spread. And so that it's such a cool setting to be in. We jump then after that to Nausicaa, and in her basically little paradise of a valley that's by the sea, which has this, you know, obviously the sea wind, the sea breeze, and it pushes the toxicity of the air back. And then they go around and they're killing all of the little growths that pop up on their plants, so to then ward off this, basically keep this dystopia at bay on the outside of their valley. And so then we jump into that, which is very much a setting change. But then so it's a little bit, we have the one guy that we follow to introduce the world a little bit, and then we cut off and go to Nausicaa. Obviously main character, okay, yeah, there's the main character, but where did this other guy go? Because we cut off with him in trouble. And then they, a little while after that, tie it back together and bring him back into the story. But it's just so cool, and we have Nausicaa, who is then raised into this belief that in order to instead of fighting back against this, I'm blanking on what they call it, against these insects, they need to learn how to coexist with them in a way where they can have their sanctuary and those insects can have theirs. And so seeing how she interacts with the insects and has this fascination and this awe over these creatures, instead of this fear that so many people hold for them. And then one of them gets angered and she comes around, she knows enough about them to figure out how to calm it down. It's such a cool world, and the story is interesting. And there's like these colossal soldiers that were apparently used at the start of this apocalyptic event to fight off these bug things, and they kind of give Attack on Titan vibes as far as like look, and they're giant, whatever else, they kind of give off the vibe of Titans. But so there's this little sort of subplot, but not really. Like it's introduced and it ends up playing an integral part to the plot, but throughout the story it's not a major plot point. It's not this super major plot point, I feel like. I don't know. It's a weird in between, because the plot really is Nausica, that what are these this plane crash lands with the last remaining colossal soldier in stasis. The people whose plane got attacked and grounded come looking for it, so they then take over Nausicaa's little valley, and then bring Nausicaa with them to go back to their territory and like negotiate or something. But their plane gets hit and they go down in the thick of this bug wilderness, and then Nausicaa's trying to get back. So that's kind of the main part that we see of the plot line. And then we have this reviving the colossal soldier going on a little more in the background. But I guess the story kind of does kind of center around them stopping that. So it is the plot, but it also isn't the plot. Yeah. Anyway, it's very interesting, and there's some cool lore, and the world is cool, and the designs, especially for the bugs, is really, really cool. And just, I love it. I really enjoyed it. It was very fun to watch through and see all these different aspects of the story work together, with these opposing worldviews, especially concerning like the bugs and like the world, because it's so cool. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend. It's been long enough that I don't have a whole lot of details to go into on that one. The next one is Silo Season 2. If you've been around long enough, you know I made a community post a while back about the first season, saying like, hey, it wasn't the most like original idea as far as a dystopian story is concerned, but the setting is interesting and it's done very well, and the characters are pretty good. And then it had that twist, and it had the twist at the end that I wasn't expecting. Like, she goes out of the silo to clean because inevitably you know she's going to, and the twist is not what you think it's going to be. So that kind of sums up season 1. I think I enjoyed season 2 better than season 1, because then once we got through like the stereotypical dystopian kind of side of it, we get to go into some of the more different and original things that they came up with. So since we're talking about season 2, spoilers for season 1, goes out of the silo, finds out there are a lot of other silos. Theirs is not the only one. The leaders weren't lying about the outside. The air is toxic. We cannot breathe it. When they said the display is a lie, they were talking about the helmet display, not the cafeteria display. So that was a very fun twist. We start season 2 with a flashback to another silo rebelling because they found the same information that Juliet did, but didn't catch on to the hints that the screen in the display in the helmet was a lie instead of the actual like display, and end up leaving their silo, opening the airlock and leaving and killing everyone who goes with them. So almost every single person in that silo dies. So it starts out with that, and it's like, hey, Silo season 2, and then we jump back to Juliet walking through this wasteland and have this, oh, it's so cool. Like, it's so awful, but it's so good. And we have her walk, she reaches the silo that we just had a flashback of, and so she is wading her way through a sea of skeletons to reach the silo, and manages to get down and get inside. I will say I wasn't the biggest fan of some of the characters that were introduced in this side of the story, in this abandoned silo, but all of these ideas and stuff that are explored, so good. I love her running around in this abandoned silo. There were some poor logic choices made on her part. So the whole thing is Juliet can't swim. No one can swim because they've been in the silo for hundreds of years, so there's no need to swim. So this silo is a little over half, I don't know, I can't remember how many levels there are exactly, but it's probably over halfway flooded because everyone escaped. The pump, one of the water pumps that keep water from filling it up like a well, are down. So it's mostly full of water. And there's lights on in one part of the IT department because it's like the most powerful department, whatever. And so that's where she's trying to get, but the one bridge leading there is destroyed. So she chooses, there's a bunch of raiders, they're called raiders, that had been killed during this revolution and then hung over the side of the bridge above. So she decides to reel them up, take the rope, tie it to the railing, drop down, and then, get over there. But instead of tying it close to the end of this bridge so she can drop down and just like step off onto the landing, she ties it in the middle of the gap, drops down and starts swinging. Which my brain just goes, woman, are you even thinking? Like, what the actual frick were you thinking? You could have just moved it 6 feet over and stepped off the rope onto this landing, but no. You had to swing. And then the rope snaps and she falls in the water and almost dies. We find out the rope snapping is not her fault and not from swinging, but still, you were hanging from the rope that long because you tied it in the middle of the gap instead of on the end of the gap. So that was a little annoying. That she decided, she dropped down, like, oh, she's being kind of smart using this rope. And then she drops down in the middle of the gap and I went, what are you thinking, Juliet? So there are a couple, that's the main one. I think that's the only one off the top of my head. But yeah, there's 1 or 2 moments like that where I'm just like, what is the logic behind this decision? But otherwise, I enjoyed it, and having her explore this abandoned silo and discovering the history behind it through the survivors that are left behind is very interesting, and having it kind of parallel some of the things that that she's discovering, parallel with what's happening back at her silo, where we're watching the civilians start to question what's going on. She didn't clean. We didn't see her die. Therefore, there's a chance that she's alive, and therefore there is a chance that they are lying to us, and they are wrong. And so we have the mayor trying to quell the rebellion and stop them from doing it, pulling a revolution and getting themselves killed, because he knows it's true, but they don't. And then it's mostly mechanical, the lower levels, which have the most reason to revolt anyway, because it just gets more impoverished as you go down the silo. And I don't remember the specific reason, but things if there's ever a problem, they find a way to pin it on mechanical. And the mechanical is the fallout guy. And whatever happens, whatever goes wrong, all these revolutions that rise up and cause problems, they're blamed on mechanical. Mechanical's wiped out. So we have people in the people who knew Juliet best, obviously, going around trying to figure out information, trying to stir up a rebellion against the uppers because something is wrong. They didn't see their friend die, she lived. And it's a very cool dynamic. I found, like, Juliet going around the abandoned silo very interesting. It's very intriguing seeing how she has to, like, MacGyver her way out of problems, all of that. But I think my favorite part was, for the most part, the rebellion storyline happening in the original silo, and seeing how all of them interact and seeing this revolution rise, and we get a lot more of Nox's character, and I grew to love Nox as a character, and so that was very cool to see. So yeah, again, not necessarily the most original storyline, especially when it comes to like a post-apocalyptic style thing, but I still love this setting of the silo and some of the cool dynamics that we get with the different characters and the different levels of power, and so it was a very fun watch. I will be watching season 3 if and when that comes out, because they're great at cliffhangers. They had the twist at the end of season 1. At the end of this season, we have Juliet make it back, save her people from making a mistake and going out and killing the entire silo. And she gets down, and the mayor, who has just been informed of some secret about the outside or whatever, or at least what this one guy thinks about the outside, is ready to go out and just be done with it. So Juliet intersects him. They go back into like the interim chamber where it's like we go in, close the door, and then open the door to the outside. And where also once you leave that chamber and the door closes, they burn the room to make sure there's no toxins in the room when they open the door again. And so we end that part of the story with them making it back into the room and then dropping to the floor because flames. And that's how we end out that last scene in that story. And then we have one more scene that is a flash into the past, I believe, because there's civilization, everyone's outside, they're scanning for radiation, but like everyone's outside. And we have this little conversation between a government senator, I believe, senator and a journalist, and yeah, misunderstanding, that was a date anyway, whole conversation, and then the guy gives her a date gift because it was how he was raised, and it is this Pez dispenser that was kind of played a significant role in especially the first season, but showed up again in the second season as well. And it's just this little duck Pez dispenser that was a relic that was pretty important to the first season. So I'm assuming it was a flash back in time, and we're going to start to get a little more of the origins of the state of the world and the silos. So that could be really interesting. But yeah, I was a little caught off guard by that. Them being burnt to a crisp would be cliffhanger enough, but then jumping to a flashback to the world probably right before everything goes to crap and the silos are built and all of that. So that'll be interesting. I kind of look forward to season 3. So yeah, that's Silo season 2. There's not a whole lot of detail things that happen. It's very overarching and it's just fun to see it, cool to see how it progresses and escalates. So I think it's a very well done show, especially concerning like characters, and even though it's not the most original story, they do it very well and it's a very cool setting to be in. So yeah, that's Silo season 2. Sonic 3. I'm not a video game girl. I did not grow up watching or playing Sonic. I didn't. I just didn't. This is how I felt about Transformers 1. No offense, Reese. But I did not grow up as with my childhood as integrally connected to the Transformers fandom. So love the movie. It's so good. It's such a well done movie, and I appreciate that we have a well done animated movie in recent years. But Wild Robot still wins because a lot of the reason you like it more, Reese, is Transformers 1 more, Reese, is because of the nostalgia and the callbacks and all of that, which go over my head because I was not as into Transformers. So anyway, Sonic 3. It's a similar relationship. I don't have all the lore, all the little Easter eggs. I don't get all of that because I didn't grow up playing Sonic or watching or whatever. I know it was a video game mostly first. I don't know when the first show came out. I just know it is a show, and that's why little children still like Sonic. So yeah, didn't grow up watching Sonic, any of that. So I'm not I don't have any nostalgia or anything behind it. But I do enjoy the movies. They seem to increasingly get better. Sonic 1 had its whole thing with like their initial design for Sonic being a horrific monster, and then they fixed it and it was beautiful by comparison. It is beautiful. Like the effects are wonderful and the CGI is very well done. But it's very like, the first one's very fun, just like a fun, entertaining movie, definitely geared more towards the kid audience. And then as we get through the rest of them, they get a little bit darker, as I think the creators realize, hey, we're getting more than just like the kid audience. So how do we keep this child friendly, but still put in some of those darker themes? The second one, we got Tails and Knuckles, and it was, again, still had a little more of that childish feel to it, but got a little bit more serious in the stakes and things like that. And then we got Sonic 3. This one, so far at least, is the best one so far. It has a lot of very dark elements, and Shadow has this awful backstory, and that we get to see play out, and it's really depressing. Really depressing. But we have this very cool look at the importance of these relationships that we build as people, that Sonic has built with both Tails and Knuckles, and with dang it, human characters' names. It wasn't that long ago. Tom and something. I'm blanking on his wife's name. Anyway, but with Tom and his wife, and then seeing having the parallel between Sonic and Shadow. Sonic being the one who has his family, and Shadow being the one who lost it. And seeing, as the story goes on, like how they are similar, how they are different. Shadow's character is wonderful, and it's so one, he's awesome and he's powerful and he's terrifying, but also just his backstory is so sad, and you understand completely how he gets to where he is, because he watches the girl he loves die. The grandfather of this girl, so basically the other part of his family gets blamed for it and imprisoned. He gets put on stasis for 50 years, even though he is not the problem. He didn't do anything. And then comes back to realize all of this, having spent all of this time in stasis, unable to do anything except be trapped in his mind with what happened to her. So it's so cool. His motives are entirely understandable. Like, probably one of the most sympathetic villains ever. It's so good. Well, we'll say antagonist, because by the end of the movie, I guess he's not technically the villain, so antagonist, will differentiate that. So love his character. Then we have, it's a little ridiculous, and they have a moment where it's just like a little too on the nose for my taste. But we have Jim Carrey playing both Eggman and his grandfather, who was also Maria's grandfather, which I would like to know how that all worked. If they're, I don't know. Are they like different parents? Because I know his parents died, and he said, I don't know anything. And then obviously her parents died because she's living with her grandfather. So it could be the same parents, it could be different parents. I don't know how exactly they connect. It's probably different parents. But anyway, they're all related. They're both played by Jim Carrey. They have a moment, and that's fun. It's funny to see him play the dual characters and like this duality of the two characters. But they have a moment where, you know, he's kind of having the whole reveal, like, you're my grandfather moment. And they straight up say it's like we're two characters played in a movie played by the same actor. And that was a little too on the nose for me as far as jokes go. Like, all of the other stuff with them together was very good and I really enjoyed it. That line was a little on the nose for me, but otherwise they handled him playing two characters very well. So that was fun. Another thing that I really, really liked. So they have the whole thing. They're trying to take out Gunn, which is responsible for Maria's death. So I don't know what the grandfather Eggman's name is. The professor, I think they just call him. So they have the professor, and then reunites with Shadow, and they team up. Obviously, they get Eggman to help them because you're my grandfather. Meanwhile, his grandfather's just using him to get his revenge, which they lead Sonic and So to believe is just taking out Gunn. But in reality, this weapon that they are stealing from Gunn is powerful enough to just destroy the entire Earth, including the people inside this weapon. So Eggman and Shadow and and the professor, because they don't want to live in a world without Maria. And this is what they deserve. It takes out Gunn, but it also removes them from this pain of living without Maria. Which, yes, obviously they're gonna go to the extreme. So cool. Gives Eggman his little like redemption arc thing, where he helps Shadow save the world. Anyway, we have a moment where Shadow and the professor are staring down at the world while they're getting ready to prep this weapon. And Shadow is staring at the Earth and goes, "Are you sure this is what Maria would have wanted?" I love the professor's response so much, because so many times it's just like, oh, this is what they would have wanted. This is what they would have wanted. And then the line that they're like going so hard in this, and then their entire plan and their entire motivation falls apart because someone goes, this isn't what this person that you're doing this for would have wanted. And then all their motivation and their commitment to this plan falls apart because they realize, oh, this isn't what they would have wanted. I have nothing against that trope, but I love the way they flip it on its head in this one. So he asks him, are you sure this is what Maria would have wanted? And the professor looks at him and goes, it's not about what she would have wanted. It's about what these people deserve. And just flipping this trope on its head and going, no, I don't care what Maria would have wanted at this point. She's gone. All that matters is making these people pay for what happened to her. And oh, it was so good. It was so good. And we're truly revealing all of the rage inside this character, revealing the true motivation. He is not driven by what his granddaughter wanted right now. He is driven by his rage and his thirst for revenge. And he is willing to take everyone out with him as he goes. And it's so good. Probably the hardest line in that entire movie. So good. Then, obviously, because Sonic needs to have his moment of realization and learning the lesson of teamwork, since he got his team in, gets his team in the second movie, and so then learning to work with his team in this one, he needs to have that moment of kind of pounding in and realizing this lesson. Shadow attacks Tom because he's disguised as the general that was kind of in charge of some of the operations at the base when Maria gets killed, and then put Shadow on stasis. So there's a love-hate relationship with this man. He dies at the beginning of the movie because of the professor. Anyway, so Tom disguises them to get this second key for the weapon so that Shadow and the professor can't use it. Shadow attacks him because he's holographically disguised as this captain general, whatever his rank was, and punches the living daylights out of him, almost literally. Sonic obviously comes in, realizes this. Also love that Shadow doesn't realize, oh crap, we're not so different, it's not so bad, they care about people too. The fact that he doesn't back out until like the very last minute is wonderful to me. I love that he's so committed to this and he doesn't give up on it so easily. But seeing how Sonic then has some understanding of what Shadow has gone through then, and freaks out, pushes his team away, takes the Master Emerald, goes gold, and attacks Shadow with the intent to kill him. Gets to the point where they're both gold, because, yeah, stakes. Anyway, so they're fighting and flying and going across the entire world, and it gets to the point where Shadow riles up Sonic. Sonic punches him to the moon and is just about to punch a hole in his chest. And Shadow points at himself. I was like, do it, I'm right here. Points at his heart, which draws back to a conversation Tom has about how Sonic's pain didn't change who he was. And then that kind of then snaps Sonic out of it, realizing this isn't what Tom would have wanted. He'd be ashamed of me. This isn't who I am. And pulling back from that. And then having a conversation with Shadow that draws Shadow back to something Maria said about how, the light of the stars takes millions of years to get to us because of the distance. And by the time it reaches Earth, the star might already be gone. And so it draws us back to a line that Shadow even said himself, but forgot after those 50 years of being trapped and being able to just fester in his rage. But the line, the light goes on, even though the star is gone. and realizing that because he remembers Maria and because he has these memories and these lessons and all of these things that he did with her and for her and learned from her, she's not truly gone. And having this realization of, oh my gosh, what am I doing? She's not gone. She's still with me. It's just different now. And then helping Sonic take out the professor, who is still lost in his rage. And it's so good. Especially the final battle and all of the different dynamics coming together and so many things. It's so good. I really, really like it. Like the first Sonic movie, it's like, oh, I enjoyed myself. It's an okay movie. The second one is very similar. It's like, oh yeah, it was enjoyable, but you know, that's I had a good time, that's about it. Sonic 3 was genuinely very good. I really liked it. And there's a fourth one coming because they're gonna keep making pulling movies out of this series for as long as they can, which as long as they're good movies, I don't care. You can keep going as long as you can make a good movie out of it. The second you can't make a decent movie out of it, you know you have to stop. So yeah, Sonic 3, very enjoyable. I loved the end, like the last bit of the movie, so good. All right, last thing. This one is technically a rewatch, but I watched it before I was doing all these Nerd Rants videos, so I didn't really talk about it, and I just finished it amidst all of these other random things, so we'll talk about it. I just finished rewatching Agent Carter, which show about Peggy. The first season is a year after Steve is lost to the ice. So it's Peggy post-war in a very misogynistic society, trying to do what she loves to do, what she did through the war, but in peacetime, in a society where men were valued more than women as far as like fighting and all of that is concerned. So it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, yay, feminist show, but they do it better than a lot of things nowadays because they set in a time period where some of the perhaps over-the-top stuff could make sense because one, Peggy has more experience than most of the guys in that room, and two, yes, you can focus on her and her kicking butt and whatever else and some of those things a little bit more because it's in a time where she is not appreciated and has to then go work incognito style by herself to get things done. So they do it in a way where some of the things that are really annoying nowadays make sense because they actually like did it well. It's an enjoyable show, definitely not like top 10 or whatever, not the greatest show of all time. It got canceled for low viewership, which is a little sad because the last scene is it's a cliffhanger. It's a little depressing that we don't get to see how it comes of that, but anyway, it's fine. It's not like I'm dying because of it. I accept it. Anyway, 2 seasons. It's about 18 episodes. Very short show, but it's the characters they introduce. They do the characters very well. And they have flaws, and they have big flaws. Gosh dang it, Jack Thompson in the second season, like he's such a jerkwad in the second season, but he's also not, and like anyway, so we have Jack Thompson, Daniel Sousa, who shows up again in season 6 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I don't like that, but that's because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fell off after season 4. It's season 7. He shows up in season 7 of that, which I forgot there were 7 seasons, because I kind of repressed season 6. Season 5 was chaotic and not great, but season 6 was just bad. And then season 7 was better, but still not great. So yeah, kind of fell off, and they brought back Sousa and they made him in a relationship with Sky, and as like No. Anyway, yeah, they brought back Sousa for the Agent Carter fans. So loved it. I love Sousa's character. I just hate that they brought him back in the way that they did. Like, they brought him back too much. They had an episode where they went back to that time period, and so they interacted with Sousa, and that was cool, and then Then they pull him out of the timeline right before he gets killed, but then fake his death so that nobody questions why he's gone, and then bring him into their time travel, their time travel team, because it's a thing now, and yeah, I don't. It was better than season 6, but season 7 still wasn't good. Anyway. Yeah. So, yes, I love the characters that they bring in. It's very cool. The main antagonist, I guess, one of the main antagonists in season 1 is a Russian. It's kind of like a different version of Black Widow, where they took in girls and they trained them and they borderline tortured them to make them into weapons, to make them into spies and weapons. So that is, they call her alias is Dottie Underwood. That's what they use most of the time. Pretty sure that's we don't know her real name. But anyway, Dottie is one of the main antagonists in the first season. I got to season 2 before I was like, oh, I recognize her, but I also had watched Agent Carter before, so I just wrote it off as that. I got to season 2, and I went, I know who this actress is. So I looked it up. She's freaking Kaylin from Legend of the Seeker. It's so random. I don't know what to do with this information. This Russian weapon spy lady is Kaylin the Confessor, and I don't know what to do with this. Ugh. But anywho, that was just a break my brain moment. Yeah, so Dottie Underwood, played by Kaylin. Oh, dang it, what's her last name? They don't say it very often, so I don't remember it. Anyway, that was interesting to find out. But yeah, Dottie's a very interesting character. Not the most in depth as far compared to the other characters. We get a lot of backstory and depth to a lot of the characters that are introduced. Dottie, we don't get quite as much. We get some flashbacks to, oh, I'm chained to a bed and I'm fighting and I had to kill my fellow schoolmates. And that's what we get. And there's not a whole lot more depth than that. So, which I think is the point. She's supposed to be this kind of enigma of a character. So it's not bad and they handle it well, and she's not a character that necessarily needs a whole lot of depth, but yeah, she's probably the least explored character compared to the other ones. Like Sousa, we get at least allusions to his backstory and why he's a cripple, and we get a lot of depth to his character just as he is now. Thompson, we get depth to, and explore kind of his character and how his ambition plays into his character, especially in season 2. But we also get some backstory, not necessarily seeing it, but stories of his past, and kind of explain some of the things of why he's the way he is. We have Edwin Jarvis, who is Howard's butler, precursor to Jarvis being an AI helper. And we love Jarvis. Jarvis is just a great man. He's amazing. He is kind of the comedic relief character, but they do it very well, and he's not over the top, and he's not Olaf style comedic relief. And he's a very well balanced comedic relief character. Whereas a lot of comedic relief characters nowadays that is what they are, and that is all they do, even at inappropriate times. Whereas Jarvis, he doesn't even necessarily crack jokes all the time, but he just has the more comedic dialogue and the more comedic like awkwardness and body language and like more physical-esque humor that goes on, and they just make him a little more of like, not necessarily the right word for this, but the one that I have right now, more of a ridiculous character. So he's a little too enthusiastic about certain things, and a little too overconfident in himself sometimes, and just those things, or the opposite way where he's just like, I can't do this. So like some of the overconfidence comes into season 2 because this is post season 1 after he's gone through an entire adventure with Peggy, and so then has done some training obviously in the interim, and so there's a lot of like anxiety, I can't do this in season 1, and that's where some of the humor comes from. And then in season 2 he has a little more overconfidence in himself because like, I trained and I'm good at this thing, even though he doesn't necessarily have the street smarts to handle a battle. So that was like, he's a very well balanced comedic relief character, and I enjoy him. We also get his wife Anna, who is a wonderful human being. I really like her, and she's such a like, she's just this lovable character, which is why they shoot her later in the season, because she's a lovable character. But the actor for Jarvis, he deserves some kind of award for how he played Jarvis's reaction to Anna being shot. It was insane. It was so good. It was so good. Like the amount of emotion on his face, just how distraught and desperate this man was. And they, obviously this isn't necessarily like his role, like in his appearance, but whoever did his appearance, like they made him look properly disheveled, so it wasn't like overstated, but like you could see his hair definitely wasn't done, his tie's more loose than usual, and he doesn't have his coat on and his suspenders are hanging instead of on. And so it was so good. And we get to the point where he is sitting at her bedside holding her hand because they're not sure if she's gonna wake up, and he's just making all these ridiculous promises. It's like, I will fix every little thing that has ever annoyed you. We will get anything you want. We will get this giant Burmese mountain dog if you just wake up. And it's all of those scenes are so good, and we have him then for the rest of the almost the rest of the season, then being driven by this rage for the main villain shooting her, and being driven by that and making reckless decisions because of it, and then flipping their plans upside down because they got it because he did something off the handle and reckless. And oh my gosh, Jarvis's character might be my favorite. Let's be honest, Jarvis is the best. Any other character by comparison is meh. Jarvis is the best. Howard shows up. He's such an arrogant douchebag. But you get to see depth. You get to see the depth of his character. You get to see how much he actually cares about how his technology affects people and how he affects the world around him, and how him struggling with these habits that he was forced to create in order to get where he is. And it's just, he's still an arrogant douche, but you get flashes of him being a real human being, and it's so good. So yeah, I enjoy Agent Carter. As far as like the main characters are concerned, they do them so well. The storylines are interesting. The Zero Matter gets a little out there, but it's not Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. time travel out there. So it works. It's a little bit, yeah, like the first season is very much, it is a spy show. There's no supernatural aspects to this. There's just the bad Russian spy making things difficult. There's and all of that, and there's it's a very down-to-earth spy show in the first season, and I love that, and I love that vibe. And then in the second one we get a little more of the supernatural into it, which inevitably goes there because it's Marvel, but It would have been fun to have, I think, some more seasons leading up into more of the supernatural side of it instead of jumping right into it, and having a little bit more of just the spy show feel. But it was still a good season. Yeah, the supernatural side of it made it a little more disconnected, I think, from the first season. Excuse me. We also got the Howling Commandos make an appearance in season 1 when they make a quick trip to Russia, and that's fun. I don't actually know if it's the same actors because it's been a hot minute since I've watched the first Captain America too. But one of the guys, Dooley is the chief. I'm blanking. It is another D name. But anyway, the guy with the bowler hat. Sorry, I'm blanking on his name. He's played by the same actor who plays Damien Dark, who is also Christian apparently, because he's the main guy in Homestead, which seeing him everywhere now. Anyway, so that was a fun little thing, just seeing, hey, you're not a well-known actor, but I know who you are. So yeah, that was fun to have them back for an episode and get that feel. And then Thompson comes along on that trip because Peggy is the only reason they have the Howling Commandos. She gets to come along, so it's her first official field mission. So Thompson then getting to see how these men respect Peggy, even over him, because they know Peggy and they know what she can do and they know what she's capable of, and him seeing what she is capable of. It was a fun episode to see how his misogyny went down a little bit. His sexism went down a little bit, and he grew to respect Peggy in that way. So that was fun. But yeah, I liked this series. It had a lot of good aspects to it. It definitely had some weird things, like the random musical number in a dream sequence. I guess Peggy is a secret lover of musicals because she got knocked unconscious and went into full musical in her head. So yeah, that was kind of out there. Not entirely unpleasant to watch, but like very random. So yeah, it definitely has its moments of like, where did that come from? Or slightly cringe. And it has one or two of those characters where I'm just like, you're so meh. I don't have feelings for you, or you're slightly annoying. It has some of that, but overall, like, the main characters are very well done. The storylines are interesting. And yeah, that's about it. Those are the 4 things that I haven't already talked about that I have been watching in TV Limbo. I will get back to a show hopefully next. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how long this TV Limbo lasts. Anyway, those are my thoughts on these 4 projects, I guess. Feel free to drop yours in the comments. I post videos on this channel currently Saturdays. We'll see how that goes after I finish my CDA. And I post videos on the audiobook channel Thursday. I missed this week because it's been a long week, but we'll get back to it next week, and I'll see you all next time.